Have you ever been curious about just how gigantic some of the gods and titans in the God of War universe really are? It's one thing to see them towering on screen, but trying to imagine their size in actual feet or even miles can be pretty mind-boggling. Today, we're going to take a look at 10 colossal beings from smallest, relatively speaking, to biggest, and you might be surprised by who ends up at the top. At number 10 is Thera, towering at around 85 feet. Thera shows up in God of War Ghost of Sparta, locked away in the Methana volcano not far from Atlantis. While searching for his brother Deimos, Kratos comes across Thera bound in chains, and she claims that Gaia foretold Kratos' arrival. She then persuades him to free her, saying that their destinies are closely linked. Kratos frees her by plunging his blades into her chest, and this extreme move grants him Thera's Bane, a fiery upgrade to his blades that allow him to smash through certain armors and obstacles. But this rescue mission is far from a minor plot point. The moment Thera is set loose, she triggers the eruption of the Methana volcano, causing Atlantis itself to sink beneath the waves. For a character who doesn't appear in classic Greek legends, she definitely has a Titan-sized impact on Kratos' journey. Moving on to number 9 is Ares, standing at around 136 feet tall. Though in many scenes, it feels like he's even bigger, given his role as the original God of War in the first installment of the series. Ares is famous in Greek mythology as the son of Zeus and Hera, known primarily for his raw aggression and thirst for battle. While Athena represents the more strategic side of warfare, Ares is the embodiment of bloodshed and pure violence. In ancient myths, he's never been the most popular deity, often viewed with disdain by gods and mortals alike due to his destructive tendencies. In the 2005 God of War game, Ares serves as the central antagonist, tricking Kratos into committing horrific acts, including the tragic slaying of his own family. This pushes Kratos on a path of vengeance so intense it ends with Kratos killing Ares and claiming the throne of the God of War for himself. In some ways, Ares is the catalyst for the entire series. At number 8 is Polyphemus at roughly 147 feet tall, the colossal cyclops introduced in God of War Ascension's multiplayer mode. Typically, multiplayer boss fights aren't the first thing that comes to mind for the series, but Polyphemus is a massive exception. He's chained up in the Desert of Lost Souls map, yet manages to pose a huge threat to anyone who gets too close. Players can interact with him by seizing the Spear of Olympus and launching it directly into his eye, giving the team a chance to finish the giant off. Polyphemus' design took inspiration from a mix of Greek myth and ancient elephant skulls. Some scholars believe that the misidentified elephant skulls might have spawned the original Cyclops legends. As a nod to that, the developers added tusks and rough, scarred textures to his design, plus some massive piercings that emphasize both his pain and power. Anyone familiar with Homer's Odyssey knows this giant from the famous tale where Odysseus blinds Polyphemus to escape the Cyclops' cave. Next, at number 7 is Jormungandr, the world serpent with a head measuring around 227.5 feet and a body supposedly stretching 24 miles. That is truly mind-blowing. He's so huge that he's said to encircle Midgard in Norse myth. This serpent is introduced in God of War as one of the last giants and a surprisingly helpful, if a bit intimidating, ally to Kratos and Atreus. He harbors a serious grudge against Thor and Odin, which lines up perfectly with the giant's backstory in the Norse pantheon, where they're persecuted relentlessly by the Aesir gods. The 2018 game sees him assist Kratos and Atreus by shifting water levels in the Lake of the Nine, among other things, but the story goes even deeper in God of War Ragnarok. There, it's revealed that a younger Jormungandr is created when Atreus, known as Loki, and Angerboda place a giant soul into a normal serpent in Jotunheim. Later, that younger serpent faces off with Thor in a battle, and Thor whacks him so hard that he's knocked back in time, straight into the period of the earlier game. This time travel twist explains how there can be two versions of Jormungandr and sets up the destined clash during Ragnarok, where the great serpent and the thunder god go toe-to-toe. At number 6 is Hephaestus, reaching around 250 feet tall, though he's usually hunched and battered by the time Kratos finds him in God of War 3. Known in Greek myth as the god of blacksmithing, Hephaestus is often described as physically deformed or injured, and in the game he's been exiled to the underworld after offending Zeus. He's the one who's crafted Pandora's box and even created Pandora herself, caring for her like a daughter. When Kratos comes knocking, looking for a way to extinguish the flame of Olympus, Hephaestus at first seems sympathetic but quickly changes his tune to protect Pandora from Kratos' destructive path. Unfortunately, that leads to a confrontation where Kratos kills Hephaestus. Hephaestus stands out as a sympathetic figure among the often arrogant Olympians. Taking the 5th spot is Gaia, around 416 feet tall. She's the primordial embodiment of the Earth and the mother of the Titans. She narrates part of the series, notably God of War 2 and 3, guiding Kratos after he's been betrayed and cast down by Zeus. With her help, Kratos storms the realm of the Sisters of Fate, rewrites destiny, and then travels back in time to rescue the Titans so they can all mount an assault on Mount Olympus. Gaia's colossal form is literally part of the battlefield in certain sequences. However, she's not exactly the benevolent grandmother figure one might imagine. When push comes to shove, she tries to leave Kratos behind, viewing him as nothing more than a pawn in the Titans' vendetta. That betrayal leads Kratos to sever her arm, sending her plummeting from Olympus. She later reappears during Kratos' final showdown with Zeus, but that encounter doesn't turn out well for her at all. Kratos finishes her off by impaling both her and Zeus through Gaia's heart with the blade of Olympus. Coming in at number 4 is Oceanus, who stretches to a whopping 1,423 feet. In Greek myth, he's often described as the Titan who personifies the great river thought to encircle the entire world. Married to Tethys, he fathered countless river gods and oceanic nymphs. In the games, there was once a plan for Oceanus to show up in God of War 2 as a boss with a watery form, but that concept ended up getting merged into Poseidon's avatar for God of War 3. Nonetheless, Oceanus does appear briefly in God of War 3, joining the Titans' assault on Mount Olympus. During that massive battle, he comes face to face with Hades and ends up dragged off the mountain into the depths. The game doesn't show him again, leaving most players to assume that was the end of him. Now at number 3 is Perses, standing at an even more intimidating 1,525 feet. Perses is known as the Titan of Destruction in the God of War series, living up to his name by bringing down devastation wherever he goes. Kratos rescues him and the other Titans from the past in God of War 2, and they return in God of War 3 to wage war against the gods. During that massive conflict, Perses goes after Helios and tries to take him out, but he eventually directs his fury at Kratos himself. This leads to a battle where Kratos, predictably, emerges victorious by driving the blade of Olympus into Perses' eye. In the myths, he's related to other cosmic forces of destruction and shares the lineage of the Titans. The games push it further, turning him into a hulking threat who tries to flatten Kratos in a last-ditch show of Titan might. Next up at number 2 is Hyperion, measuring around 1,555 feet tall. Hyperion is a Titan known in mythology as the father of Helios, the sun, Selene, the moon, and Eos, the dawn. He's often called the Titan of Light because of this lineage. In God of War Chains of Olympus, Hyperion briefly appears in Tartarus, bound and weakened by the Olympians unable to join the battle. The series also nods to Hyperion throughout mechanics like the Hyperion Gates in God of War 3, which let players teleport around the map, and special moves for the Blades of Chaos named Hyperion Ram and Hyperion Fury. While he doesn't get a huge chunk of screen time, his presence looms large thanks to his ties to the cosmic cycle of day and night. Even the game's world-building references his role, hinting that if he were ever fully freed, he'd become a formidable force. Finally, at number 1 is the gigantic Kronos, towering above the rest at an incredible 1,600 feet. He's the father of Zeus and the leader of the Titans during the Great War. As punishment for his part in that ancient conflict, Zeus had Kronos cursed to forever wander the desert of lost souls with Pandora's temple chained to his back, essentially turning him into a living stage for Kratos to explore in the first game. That image alone is one of the series' most iconic moments, a Titan so big that an entire temple sits on his shoulders like a backpack. By God of War 3, Kronos has been banished to Tartarus. Kratos eventually confronts him there, and despite Kronos' near limitless size and power, Kratos manages to climb all over him, hacking away until he drives the blade of Olympus straight into Kronos' forehead. The character is pulled straight from Greek myth, where Kronos famously overthrows his father, Oceanus, only to be overthrown by his own son Zeus. The God of War series takes that legend and dials the spectacle up several notches, turning Kronos into an impossibly massive boss who helps define the tone of grand, larger-than-life battles that the franchise is famous for. So, there you have it, the biggest titans and gods in God of War, from the fiery Thera to the absolutely massive Kronos, who's practically his own ecosystem. Now, if you want to see other cool videos, you can check out this one that appears on your screen. Click on it to see it.